Hi class, how are you guys doing? I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you spoiled your mom rotten and made sure you said Happy Mother's Day. So for Mother's Day, we just chilled here and I made a really yummy cake. It was a lemon and strawberry, and Mr. Potter made this bread that was super good. So we had pasta and his homemade bread, and then we had cake, and that was about it. It was a good day. Enjoyed the sunshine and ate outside. So I hope you guys are doing well. Last week of school. Remember, if you want to be on the Zoom talent show, you don't have to do a talent. You can still be on the call. But okay, so it's been a while. I kept forgetting. So Fudge is at the dentist. Okay. I'll remember Dr. Brown tricked Fudge into opening his mouth, and Peter was the one who did it. Okay, so we headed for Bloomingdale's, which is a large department store in New York, where we get our shoes. There are 5 salesmen in the children's shoe department. 2 of them my mother doesn't like. She thinks they don't measure my feet carefully. That all they care about is selling shoes, even if they don't have the right sizes in stock. The other ones my mother thinks are okay. There's one she likes a lot. His name is Mr. Berman. I like him too because he's funny. He usually makes me believe that the right shoe goes on the left foot, or that Fudge's shoes are really for me. Anyway, Mr. Berman waits on us. Buying shoes is almost fun. Today, Mr. Berman spotted us right away. He always remembers our name. Well, if it isn't the Hatcher boys, he said. In the flesh, I told him. Fudge opened his mouth for Mr. Berman. See, all gone. His teeth, my mother explained to Mr. Berman. He knocked out his 2 front teeth. Well, congratulations, Mr. Berman said. That calls for a celebration. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out 2 lollipops. He handed one to me and one to Fudge. Ooh, Fudge said. Lolly. Mine was root beer flavored. I hate root beer, but I thank Mr. Berman anyway. I'll save it for after lunch, I told him, handing it to my mother. She put it into her purse. Fudge got a lemon lolly. He ripped off the paper and started sucking right away. Now then, what will it be, boys? Mr. Berman asked. My mother answered, brown and white saddles for Fudge and loafers for Peter. Okay, Peter, let's see how those feet have grown. I slipped out of my old shoes and stood up. I stuck my left foot into Mr. Berman's foot measure. Then he turned it around and put my right foot in. That's another reason why my mother thinks Mr. Berman is good at selling shoes. He measures both feet. Some other salesmen only measure one. My mother says feet can be different sizes, even on the same person, and it's important to make sure the size fits the biggest foot. What color loafers, Peter? Mr. Berman asked. Brown, I said, same as my old ones. Mr. Berman went into the back to look for shoes for me. My mother noticed a hole in the toe of my sock. Oh, Peter, why didn't you tell me you had a hole in your sock? I didn't know I had one, I said. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. It's my sock, Mom. Why should you be embarrassed, I asked. Well, it looks terrible. I mean, to come shopping for shoes with a hole in your sock? That's just awful. Can't you hide it a little? Where should I hide it? Try to get the hole in between your toes so it doesn't show, my mother said. I wiggled my sock around trying to rearrange my hole. My mother sure worries about silly things. Mr. Berman came out with 2 pairs of loafers. He likes to try different sizes to make sure I'm getting the right one. One pair was much too big. The other pair fit fine. Wear or wrap? Mr. Berman asked my mother. Wrap, please, she said. We'll wear the old ones home. I've never been allowed to wear new shoes home from the store. Don't ask me why, but my mother always has the new pair wrapped up, and I can't wear them until the next day. When I finished, Mr. Berman untied Fudge's shoes and measured his feet. Brown and white saddle shoes, my mother reminded him. Mr. Berman went into the back and returned with 2 shoe boxes. But when he opened the first box and Fudge saw the saddle shoes, he said, No. No what? My mother asked him. No shoes, Fudge said. He started kicking his feet. Don't be silly, Fudgy. You need new shoes, my mother told him. No, 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 he hollered. Everybody in the shoe department looked over at us. Here's the perfect size, Mr. Berman told Fudge, holding up one shoe. Wait till you see how nice these new shoes will feel. Fudge kicked some more. It was impossible for Mr. Berman to get the shoes on his feet. He screamed, "No shoes! No, no, no!" My mother grabbed hold of him, but he was wiggling all around. He managed to give Mr. Berman a kick in the face. Lucky for him, Fudge only had on socks. "Now look, Fudge," my mother said, "you must get new shoes. Your old ones are too small. So what kind do you want?" I don't know why my mother bothered to talk to him like he was a regular person, because when Fudge gets himself into a temper tantrum, he doesn't listen to anything. By that time, he had thrown himself onto the floor where he beats his fist against the rug. "What kind do you want, Fudge? Because we're not leaving here until you have new shoes," my mother said, like she meant it. I figured we would be there for the rest of the day, or maybe the week. How could my mother have been embarrassed over a little hole in my sock and then act like nothing much was happening when her other son was on the floor yelling and screaming and carrying on? "I'm going to count to 3, my mother told Fudge, "and then I want you to tell me which shoes you want. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Fudge sat up. "Like Peeta's," he said. I smiled. I guess the kid really looks up to me. He even wants to wear the same kind of shoes, but everybody knows you can't buy loafers for such a little guy. "They don't come in your size," Mr. Berman told Fudge. "Yes, yes, like Peeta's," Fudge hollered. Mr. Berman held up his hands and looked at my mother, as if to say, "I give up." But my mother said, "I have an idea." She motioned for me and Mr. Berman to come closer. I had the feeling I wasn't going to like her idea, but I listened anyway. "I think we'll have to play a little joke on Fudge," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, suppose Mr. Berman brings out a pair of saddle shoes in your size and—" "Oh, no," I said, "you are not going to get me to wear saddle shoes. Never." "Let me finish," my mother said. "Mr. Berman can bring them out and you can try them on, and then Fudge will think that's what you're getting. But when we leave, we'll take the loafers." "That means," I said, "you're taking advantage of him." "Since when do you worry about that?" my mother asked. "Since now," I told her. "Look, Peter," my mother said, checking her watch. "It's 12 o'clock. I'm starved." "Me too," I said. "Well then, if you ever want to get some lunch, let's try my idea." Okay, I said. I sat back in my chair while Mr. Berman hurried to the stockroom again. Fudge looked up at me from his position on the floor. "Like Peter's," he said. "Yeah, sure, Fudge," I told him. Mr. Berman came back with a pair of brown and white saddle shoes in my size. I tried them on. Did they look ugly? "See Peter's nice saddle shoes," my mother said. "Now Fudgies tries on his nice saddle shoes." Fudge let Mr. Berman get him into his new pair of shoes. "See," he said, "just like Peeta's." He held up a foot. "That's right, Fudge," I told him, "just like mine. You can sure fool little kids easy." "Wear a wrap?" Mr. Berman asked my mother while Fudge walked around in his new shoes. "Wrap, of course," she said. I wondered what my mother would tell Fudge tomorrow when I wore my new loafers. Oh well, that really wasn't my worry. It was her idea. When Fudge was back in his old shoes and our package was ready, Mr. Berman gave my brother a striped balloon. He offered me one too. I refused. How could he think a person in 4th grade might want a shoe store balloon? "That wasn't so terrible, was it, Peter?" my mom said as we left the store. "It wasn't," I said, "It wasn't," I asked. "Well, it could have been worse," my mother said. "I suppose," I answered. All right. How many of you have ever thrown fits in stores before? Hopefully none of you. All right, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.